When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Elias Mackos, CJAD 800.
Welcome back to the Elias Mackos Show. I'm Sarah Day, keeping you company on this Boxing Day morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Text me anytime, 514-800. You might want to text in if you've ever been through something similar to what my next guest has lived through. It's a similar experience to something I've actually had, and I'll tell my story in just a moment. But first, I want to introduce you to Sahar Mohammadzadeh. Mohammadzadeh. She came to Montreal for a visit from Toronto on Grand Prix weekend last June, and she was staying at a hotel on the South Shore in Boucherville, I believe. And just as she was checking out, she noticed some things were missing, including a pair of AirPods. And she's here on the line to tell me about what she did next and how she used technology to help her get those items back. Sahar, welcome to the Elias Mackos Show. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So when did you notice that something was missing, and how did you do that quick tally, like of what items were gone?
Yeah, so I was just about to check out of the hotel. It was at the end of the Grand Prix weekend, and I always have a list of items that I take with me on my phone
when organized.
I go on a trip. So when I was checking out, I was just making sure I had all my items. And actually, the first thing I noticed was my purse that was missing. I had a little evening Louis Vuitton bag with me, and as I was packing, I noticed that was gone. And you never assume that things are stolen or things have been taken from your room. So I just ripped through the entire room to see if I had misplaced it, if I had put it in maybe a different bag. But it became very clear very, very quickly that it was gone. It wasn't actually till I got home later that day, back to Toronto, when I realized that my AirPods were also missing.
So the AirPods, if we can just remind people what AirPods are, they are speakers for your phone, and they're very small. They fit in the palm of your hand, the case, right? And then you take out the AirPods, you pop them into your ears. There's no wires, so they can actually be pretty easy to lose. Now, did you think that you had still at this point misplaced them?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like at the time, I was so rattled about not having my bag or for that to be stolen that I completely didn't even remember that I brought my AirPods with me on this trip. And then I think I got home and I was about to watch something and I was looking for my AirPods and I was like, oh no, like these are also gone. They must have been taken with the purse. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, I can track these. I remember I registered them through the Find My Phone technology. And I tracked them back to Montreal. So I knew they were still there. And I actually was able to track it back to the hotel.
Okay, wow. So the Apple has this program called Find My iPhone. So if you've got an iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook, so a portable computer, if you have those AirPods, those little speakers that you see people walking around with, they're very small, so easy to lose. You have this program called Find My iPhone or Find My whatever. So when you saw that this was still that you had left behind at the hotel, what did you do next?
Well, so when I was at the Imperia Hotel in Boucherville, and at the time when I was checking out, and obviously at first it was mostly about the bag. I was more concerned about that at the time because I didn't even realize the AirPods were missing. So I followed up with the hotel and the hotel management to let them know, hey, I actually know for a fact my AirPods are still at this hotel and also being tracked back and forth from this person's home and back to the hotel. So I could only assume that it was an employee of the hotel. And after a few emails sent to the management team and many phone calls, they weren't very responsive. They were kind of dismissive of the whole thing. So that's when the police got involved. Just before I checked out of the hotel, I did file a report with the police. And after a few weeks, they reached out to me and I kind of gave them the information I had about being able to track the location of these AirPods. And over the course of a few months, I worked with the investigator on my case, and he was able to use the technology that I was able to track the location of the AirPods with to actually go and find this person and ultimately recover the AirPods.
Oh my gosh. And so you have them back there in your possession again?
I do, yeah. So actually just before Christmas, the investigator was able to send them back to me. So they after, 6 months or so, since June of last year when I was there, I finally got them back. And it's still an ongoing case. I never recovered my bag, and the hotel has just, been informed of all of this, so there's probably a little bit more that needs to happen on that end as well. But yeah, finally got them back, and I'm very grateful to the police for supporting me throughout the claim. Obviously, there's other priorities that I'm sure they had, but it was great to know that I was able to help in some way.
Speaking with Sahar Mohammadzadeh, who lost her AirPods when she was staying at a hotel in Boucherville during Grand Prix weekend. So that was last June, and she got them back. They were mailed to her by the police just a couple weeks ago, right before Christmas. Now, someone might say, hey, Sahar, why don't you just replace the AirPods? What's the big deal? But it's not quite so simple as that.
Yeah, obviously, I always have this philosophy that if you can't afford to lose something, you shouldn't have it. And if I had lost something, I would have thought, no problem, I'll go ahead and replace it. But it's the principle of the matter. Mm-hmm. It's that something was taken from me from a establishment that I was paying to be at. This was like a service worker. This is an employee of the hotel. When you stay at a hotel, you assume that there is a level of, security and privacy that you're entitled to. And I just thought, what, I have the opportunity to, keep the hotel accountable. And obviously the police thought I had a good enough case, I guess, or evidence to kind of support the claim. So I thought I had to pursue this. And, I think people thought that the story was pretty interesting. CTV News also did a segment on this, and I've gotten a lot of comments back that similar things have happened at this establishment or other establishments. So I think it's not just about the items, it's not just about the material items, but also just about the accountability and the responsibility of the hotel and the establishment.
Now, Sahar, you didn't actually confront anybody. You filed a police report. You dealt with the police. You informed the hotel. You didn't just kind of go off gallivanting and go to someone's house and say, can I have them back? What advice would you give to someone who might be in a similar situation? Because this can be your phone, it could be your AirPods, your MacBook, your tablet, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. There were times where I was very tempted to, seek it out myself. Obviously, when working with the police, it was over the course of a few months. There's a lot of work that goes into this. So had I lived in Montreal, I'm sure I would have been tempted to go and confront the person myself. But after speaking with the police and understanding the risks sometimes that are involved with, confronting people about stolen items, I'm happy I stayed and worked with the police instead of confronting myself. You never know what kind of situations you're going to find yourselves in, especially for material items. It's not necessarily the best to put yourself in that kind of situation. So I would always tell people if something like this happens to you where you have the opportunity to rely on the support of the police department, I would say you should, because you never know. You never know what you'll find.
Sahar, before I let you go, this is something similar happened to me a couple of years back. I was out for dinner with some old school friends at a restaurant at McGill College, and I went to the washroom. I came back, my knapsack was missing. So similar to your purse and other things having disappeared, and my iPad, which at the time was a big lifeline for me. I still have this device.
Oh, for sure.
We actually chased the guys from McGill College near McGill University all the way up Saint Laurent to the McDonald's outside Jean Talon Metro, so totally different neighborhood. And you know what I did? I went up and I confronted them, and I said, I recognized them from the restaurant. I said, can I have you back?
Wow.
And they ran away. And at that point, I called the cops and said, you can track my iPad. Can you help me out? And they did end up recovering my knapsack.
Oh, wow.
And my iPad. And just my life was in my knapsack at the time. I was still living at home. I had a boyfriend. I was sleeping in different places at different nights. And I went home and had to cancel all my credit cards. But I got it back in the end. And I think there's an important lesson from your story and my story, which is maybe not to confront people, but to call the cops when you can to help recover things. Sahar, I'm really glad things worked worked out for you. The case is still pending, of course, but you've got those AirPods just in time for your holiday listening or holiday phone calls that I'm sure you're making right now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually using them right now as we're having this call. So
there we go. Sahar, it's been so nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time. Glad you got them back.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. Appreciate you having me on.
Sahar Mohammadzadeh, she's from Toronto. If you'd like to learn more about that, CTV Montreal has the story. Great little piece by Joe Lofaro. It's posted just a couple of days ago. The hotel in question declined to answer CTV's questions because the police investigation is ongoing.